Hi friend, thank you for joining me. I am Gail and this is Stitchity Doo Doll. And in today's video, I've got a plethora of Amigurumi dolls to share with you, and it's all from one pattern designer. And her name is Clare Cooper from Ochepots. Let's go take a look. My first doll is Maude, and here she is. She is one of a collection of 5 different pattern dolls from the Quirky Doll collection, which includes Maude, June, Evie, Polly, and Max. I have not made Polly or Max, but I hope to eventually make them. I don't own the patterns yet, but I have purchased each of the June, Maude, and Evie patterns individually. And sometimes you can also buy them as a collection as well. And I would recommend that if you plan on doing it all together, but at the time I didn't have the funds, so I just bought them individually. Now, I super love Maude. I have a thing for space buns for some reason. My very first Amigurumi doll was a doll from La Crocheteria, and she's the Chloe doll, I believe, and she also has space buns. But yeah, I super love the look of little girls with their space buns. I just think it's adorable. She's super cute. And I love the way that she came out. I love the whole Quirky Doll collection. As I mentioned, I want to make them all and I want to have a whole collection of my own. But for some reason, this particular doll, out of the whole 5, I really felt like I wanted to make more. And I haven't felt that with the June doll or the Evie doll. But for this one, I was like, I want to make more. And so I did. I made a second one. And here's my second Maude doll. Now, what I did differently is the leggings. And I super love the way that it came out. Now, with the legging stripes, I felt like I could play with colors. Look at the different bright colors. I have pink, yellow, and blue going on. And then there's this accent piece, which I added on later, which I did not make, by the way. This was already pre-purchased as is. And this Maude doll has a butterfly one, but those I did not make. I bought those like eons ago. But with the leggings, I was like, I could play with colors. So these 2 dolls are made with Hobby Lobby's I Love This Cotton. It's a 4-weight 100% cotton yarn, and I love working with it. But what I did was I went to Hobby Lobby and I purchased more colorful, bright, cheerful yarns to add to my collection so that I could make more of these. But instead of cotton, I ended up using Hobby Lobby's I Love This yarn, which is a 4-weight acrylic yarn. And then this doll was born. And then another doll was born. Don't you just love the different colors? I mean, I couldn't stop. I kept going. Here's another one. So here's 3 so far, minus the cotton ones. And then here's another. I mean, I'm not joking. I went nuts. And then here's another. I played with the colors. I couldn't help myself. Look it. And then there's this one. So let's see, 2, 4, 6 acrylic Maude dolls. And it all started with the leggings. It started with plain legs. And then the leggings got me going, thinking colors. I can play with colors. And then this is what happened. An explosion of Maude dolls. I couldn't help myself. But what I love about these dolls is just the simplicity of it, and that you can play around with it. And I do love the fact that this dress is separate from the body, even though if you can't take it off, she does have underwear. You could change the color of the underwear to whatever color you want. I just happen to make mine the same as the dress. In that particular case, this one's different so that it matched the leggings. For these 2, I do have these hair embellishments, which I love, but the other ones I ended up not. adding them on. I didn't have enough of these embellishments, but you could add different things. Like they have plastic cabochons that you could add on and glue them on if you wanted to, but just keep in mind that if you do use something other than fibers like this, it could be a choking hazard depending on how you're attaching it and things like that, so just be aware of that. But I super love all of my Maude dolls. Now for the Maude doll, I do have a beginner's hint, if you will, and that is for her buns. The starting chain in the round does not count as a stitch, so just keep that in mind when you're doing your stitch counts at the end of the round. Also, for this doll, I thought that the dress was a little too short for my liking, so I ended up adding one extra round of stitching to lengthen it, because otherwise, if you just tilt her, you can already see her underwear. So, and that's with me adding one extra round into her dress, so it's just something to keep in mind. I really enjoyed adding the leggings. I think it added another level of texture and interest to the entire doll when you compare this one versus this one. And then the leggings, like I said, it just created a whole rabbit hole for me. It's not a pattern modification, it's just a matter of color changes, so it's easy to implement. I also super love how I played with the colorful yarns and ended up with all these beautiful dolls. So yeah, they each have their own cute little personalities. So for this pattern, it was easy to follow. I did not find any errors, and I love the way that each of the dolls turned out. Who knows, I might make more in the future. My next doll is the June doll, and here she is. Now I did make her before, if you're thinking she looks familiar, because she is right here in the background, but she is much smaller. This one is a much smaller doll. This one is the older one. She was made with, I believe, either a 3-weight or a 2-weight yarn, and a smaller hook, of course. And then this one was made with 4-weight yarn and a 3.5 millimeter hook. So if you can see, it's a very big difference. And the stitch definition is much higher with the smaller yarn. And I think that goes across the board. Like generally speaking, whenever you're using a thinner yarn, I feel like, oh, and also this is cotton, I feel like the stitch definition is much more prominent, I think, in my opinion. But yeah, so this is my more current one. I wanted to make a larger one so that she could fit the size of the rest of my Ochepot dolls, because I want to have a whole collection of Ochepot dolls, and then they're using similar yarns so that they end up the same height when they're within the same collection. So I wanted a bigger June doll, and this is how she turned out. I super love the way that she came out. Now I don't have much to say about her other than I love the striping, the jogless striping. I think I've found my most favorite way of doing jogless striping. The color change between like maybe a solid blue and a solid white, because sometimes you can see the jog. And no matter if I'm doing the regular finish off, the clean invisible finish off, it still has a little bit of a jog, but I think I found a way to kind of minimize it so it's less visible, and I'm super loving the way that my striping and color changes are coming out. So this is my June, and I love her. I love her Parisian look. I don't know, I have a thing for Parisian looks for some reason, but she's super cute. For this pattern, I did not find any errors. I found it easy to follow, and I love how she turns out every single time. My next doll is Lumi, and she comes from a magazine, and for me, she was free because I got her from my Libby app, which is a free app, and I didn't have to pay anything. So she comes from the Australian Homespun magazine June-July issue, and here she is. She is so super sweet and cute. She does come with a little pug, which I did not make, unfortunately, but I should make her a little companion because they are super cute together. Now again, this is kind of like a Parisian looking girl. She's got a beret, so cute. And then I love her coat. I mean, look at that design. Isn't that so precious? I think it's so adorable. I wouldn't mind wearing one of those in real life. It's so super cute. Now for this pattern, I will say that this pattern, because it was written in a magazine, it was written differently from Ochepots' Etsy patterns. Ochepots' Etsy patterns are written short and concise, which is how I prefer my amigurumi patterns to be written. And for some reason, the designer chose to be more wordy with a pattern for this particular one in the magazine, and I think it's so that it can look more like a magazine article perhaps. I don't know, but just be aware that her pattern writing style does switch from her Etsy pattern to this particular pattern in the magazine. The only thing I have to say about wording of concise versus wordy is that it does slow you down as a maker and lengthens your making process. Now, I do have something to say about her hair fringe, and hair fringe meaning like her bangs, this little bit and this little bit here. This is what I call the sideburns. I mean, I don't know what else to call them, but towards the end of the second sideburn, I think it becomes the wording of the pattern becomes a little confusing, so I just kind of winged it. I anchored the anchoring stitch like how the pattern suggested, and then I just finished off with a slip stitch. Whatever you can do to make it work for you, I think is best. Don't get too caught up in the wording because it was a little confusing for me as a maker, but just as long as it looks good and it works and it finishes off fine and it looks like the other side, it's fine. And then plus two, you can always sort of cover it up or detract from whatever thing if it turns out looking kind of weird to you, which I don't think so. You can kind of hide it with these little pigtails here. So other than that, no errors, and I love the finished project. My next finished doll is the Adeline Vintage Amigurumi doll. And here she is. She is so super cute. I love the way that she came out. Now this pattern is a free pattern that you can find on a website called AdelaineHillsYarnCo.com. And this is so super sweet. She does have that vintage vibe to her with her hair and this little thing. I don't know what to call it. And then the colors, I love it. And one of the things that I love about this pattern is that it incorporates a granny square. I love that. So super sweet. Now for the hair, the designer uses color changes for the most part when doing her hair. And then later on, she has you attach different strands or separate strands of yarn to add this little fringe bit. And I love the yarn choice that I made for the fringe bit because it nicely matches the rest of her hair, but it also adds a really nice texture to her hair, I think. I really love that, how it turned out. Now for my doll, her dress is a little too big for her. As you can tell, her undies are showing. So I did not do what I highly recommend and I suggest for all makers is that whenever you're making separate clothing articles for your dolls, crocheting especially, or even sewing for that matter, it doesn't matter, but whenever you're making clothes, always audition your clothes onto your dolls to make sure that the fitting is right. And then do that so that in process you can make adjustments instead of waiting to the end and figuring out, oh no, it's too big or it's too small. But for me, it was okay. I mean, I can still make do with it. I mean, it's a little saggy bottom, but it's okay. It's not too excessively bad where I really have to redo it. So I just ended up saying it's good enough. Now I will say when the pattern designer works the granny square for her dress bib portion, she does do something a little different that I wasn't familiar with. Usually people start off with chains, but she does something a little different. So I thought that was pretty interesting. If you're curious about it, I would suggest that or recommend that you go and check out this pattern. Also, if you want to learn how to make bendable legs at the hips so that your doll is able to sit, she has this free pattern on this website that teaches you and has you do it this way. So if you never knew how this is done, you can check out this free pattern and you'll know how to do it next time. For any of your patterns, you can modify it and do it this way to make any of your dolls sit. So for this pattern, I found it easy to follow. I did not find any errors and I super loved the way that she turned out. My next doll is actually a collection of dolls from the Orchard doll collection, and they include 5 different pattern dolls for a mango, a blueberry, a grape, a grapefruit, and an apple. And here's my blueberry doll. I super love the way that she turned out. Now this is the first time I think that I can recall where I used different colored cheeks other than pink for the cheeks, and I think it looks so sweet. I mean, I never would have thought about it, and the only reason why I did it was because it was in the pattern that was purple. So I followed it and I just love the way that it turned out. So super sweet. And then I love her cute little sprout leaves up here. I love the color combination and I love her sweet design. I super love her. Now for this particular pattern, I did not find any errors. It was straightforward, easy to follow, and I super love how she turned out. Here's my Grape doll. Isn't she so sweet? I love her cute little grape topper here, and then her little grape baubles. So super sweet. Also for this pattern, I found it easy to follow, no errors, and I super love the way that she came out. So super sweet and cute. And here's my grapefruit girl. So cute. I love the white detailing that she adds to her hair. Now this part was embroidered, but this part is actually crocheted in. I love that detail. And then for her shorts, I just used variegated yarn to give that little added texture look for her. So super cute. Now for this pattern, I found it easy to follow. I did not find any errors, and I super love the way that she turned out. And here's my apple doll. So super sweet. And I don't think these are supposed to be attached. I think they're supposed to be just left like this, but it kind of looks like sideburns. Don't you think? I super love the way that she turned out. I love these little stem and leaf details. So super cute. And you don't have to make her a green apple. You can make her a red apple if you wanted. Or this could be a boy if you wanted. Now for this pattern, I did not find any errors. It was straightforward, easy to follow, and I love the way that she turned out. And here is my mango doll. So super sweet. I love her cute little side swept bangs here. So cute. Ochepots calls it fringe, but I call it bangs, but this is so cute. I love it. It adds to that mango look and feel, the shape of it, because that's reminiscent of a mango to me. And I love the colors, the color combinations chosen, and this cute little just ever so sweet leaf here. I love fresh fruit mangoes. Miko and I love to eat them, sweet and green. I especially love eating them green. Now for this pattern, I did find maybe an error, maybe not an error. I'm not sure what the intention of the designer is, but I did find possibly a couple of errors. So for round 10 of the fringe, which would be the ending part here, for round 10, there were not enough stitches to do the number of stitching that the designer has you do in the pattern unless you work the first stitch of the round in the same stitch. Then you'll end up with the correct number of stitches. So I'm not sure if that's a typo error or what, but I did end up doing the first stitch into the same stitch, and then that gives me the correct number of stitches at the end of the row. Also, for round 11, which is also in this area of the fringe, the total number of stitches at the end of the row should be 2 because of the rule where the designer specifies that chain 2 or chain 3s either count or does not count as a stitch. That would have been a typo error in round 11 of the fringe. So because of those minor possible errors towards this area, just keep in mind that the designer is just trying to come to a point here, and that's what she's trying to achieve. And just as long as you're able to finish it off neatly, it's fine. It's no big deal, and it works out just perfect. So a tip is to remember whenever you're working this fringe part of her hair is to just remember what the designer says about chaining 2 and chaining 3, whether it counts as a stitch or not, because then that'll affect your stitch count. Because I think in a couple of the rows I thought it was an incorrect number of stitches, but really it was correct because the starting chain either counts or doesn't count as a stitch. But round 11 was definitely incorrect because of that ruling. But other than that, this pattern was easy to follow, and I super love the way that she came out. I also love the way that she has this strapless dress. I think it's so sweet. Very girly. Now, in one of my previous podcasts, I had mentioned that I had an idea in my head of how I wanted to try something about the Ochepot dolls because of the construction of these dolls, the way that the head is constructed and the body is constructed, and then the two are attached together, it kind of creates this wobbly head syndrome. And I had an idea in my head of how to kind of approach it and see if I could reinforce it with my usual reinforcement, which is a hot glue gun stick. And I did it with this one. And she does look a little different because I did attach the sideburns, which I realized afterwards, oh no, I don't think I was supposed to do that. So she might look a little different in that respect. But if you look at her neck area, it is slightly different. It is reinforced. This is definitely much more stable, but I don't care for the shaping around the neck. I much like this one better, and because of that, I did not pursue this method for any of my other Ochepot dolls. I just stuck to the original pattern, and I'm okay with living with this wobbly head syndrome. I think the dolls are super adorable, even with a wobbly head. I think it's super sweet. So what I did for this was, I just left a little portion of the head area open. So this is open and not finished off. Usually you just finish off the head and then you have an open body and then you sew the two together. But instead of closing up the head, I just left a hole. And then while the hole is open in the head and the hole is open in the body, I was able to insert a glue stick and then stuff both ends and then sew around the neck area and created this. And it does the job, but I just didn't like the look of the neck, the shaping of it. I didn't care for. So if you don't care about the shaping of the neck and you much prefer a more stable neck for your Ochepot dolls, this is a possible approach that you can try for yourself and see if you like it. So, but I much prefer this look, so I'm going with the original design. But I just wanted to share that with you in case you're interested. For my birthday this year, which December is my birthday month, I did get her new book, Amigurumi Adventures. And I wasn't quite sure if I wanted this book. I put it on my wish list kind of last minute, but I was like, I'm not sure if I want this book because I actually already own these 3 patterns from the Etsy shop. And then it also includes the Grapefruit girl. Where is she? Oh, here she is. I already own her, which I've already shared with you. So I was like, I already own 4 of the patterns in this book already. Do I really want or need the book? And then I asked myself, the same question whenever I'm considering purchasing any amigurumi book or any pattern book, which is how many of these patterns would I realistically want to make? So I counted them up and came up with 3, 4, I think about 11 patterns. And for the price of the book, I was like, okay, yeah, in that case, it is worth it for me to get the book. So I put it on my wish list and I got it for my birthday. And I'm super excited to work out of it. I haven't tried any of these patterns yet. But what I will say, what I did notice upon further inspection, which I thought was pretty curious, is that the pattern in the book for the Grapefruit doll is different from her Etsy pattern. If you look at the shaping of both, I think the one in the book looks more short and stout, and this one looks like she's got more slender, longer legs. And then also the pattern in the book for the Grapefruit doll also includes a basket and also a grapefruit slice to embellish her top there, which I thought was pretty interesting. So in that case, I don't have an exact pattern of the Grapefruit doll. Really, I have a different pattern version of the Grapefruit doll, so it's not necessarily a duplicate pattern. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But these 3 dolls, they do look a little similar. I haven't actually checked round per round and row by row to see if it's exactly the same or not, but they do look a lot more alike to the Etsy patterns as opposed to the Grapefruit doll ones. So if you were ever curious and you had the same issue where you're like, oh, I already have some of these patterns, should I even get the book? So that was my thought process, and I ended up putting it on my wish list, getting it, and I'm super happy that I did. So I have a bunch of general tips for you when working most of the patterns that I've mentioned in today's video, which look like this, minus the Adeline doll. The Adeline doll was constructed differently, so whatever suggestions or tips that I mentioned during that portion of the video applies to that specific doll. But these general tips that I'm about to share with you will apply to these dolls, where it's more of the bullseye face shape head and fringe. So when I first did this, I noticed I had to kind of stretch my hair fringe a little bit to make it fit. Here's one of the dolls where it didn't actually fit here. And no matter how much I stretched it, it was starting to distort the fringe, and I didn't like that. So in some of the dolls, I was able to rip it back and then change the length of the hairline. But because of that, I realized, okay, what I need to do is just work the hair fringe first, and then that will determine how long I make the hairline. So I don't finish off the head first. I do the hair fringe first, and then I close it off. Also, tip number 2, when working the hair fringe, after the starting chain in a row, sometimes the designer specifies working the first stitch into the same stitch or the next stitch. And sometimes she doesn't even specify either one. So you're left kind of wondering, well, where do I start the first stitch? So when the designer specifies work the first stitch into the same stitch, it's referring to the same stitch where the chain is coming out of. If she specifies the next stitch, it's referring to the next stitch over, which will be the second stitch from where the chain is coming out of. If the designer does not specify either one, just assume that the default is to work into the next stitch. And this is important because if you do not continue into the correct stitch, at the end of the round, you may end up with an incorrect number of stitches. So another tip or another observation I would say is that some of her Etsy patterns, she does reuse some photos. For instance, I believe in the quirky doll patterns, sometimes she reuses pictures across all of the quirky doll patterns. So even though if a picture doesn't exactly match your individual doll, just know that you should be following the color changes and things specified in the pattern, despite the look of the colors that you see in photos. So just be aware of that, because then it might be confusing as to how come my doll doesn't look like the one in the picture. And it's because she's reusing a photo across all the entire collection. Another observation I made is that some of the dolls have you crochet the arms in and some have you sew them in. I believe the quirky doll ones were crocheted in, whereas the orchard dolls had you sew them on. I just thought it was something to take note of. Also for the quirky doll ones, because the arms are crocheted in, you can use photos 11 and 12 for round 42 to help you with the construction of the body. So that's all of my Ochepot dolls that I've been working on during probably from the beginning of summertime up until now. That was a lot of Ochepot dolls. I did not realize until I started gathering them for this video how many of them I had worked on. It was crazy. So I guess I was in Ochepot mode during summertime. But I figured it was enough dolls to render its own individual video. So thank you so much for joining me and making me part of your day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye!